Well, well, well. Kafka, the woman of your dreams, the one you've been waiting for. Less than a week away from her release date, and she's shaping up to be one of the baddest bitches to ever grace anime inside of a video game. She is fine. I mean that from high quality, satisfactory, and a literal standpoint. She is actually fine. Her booba physics will probably be peak. She'll probably be sitting at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro next to Master Chief, and even Master Chief himself will take his helmet off just to get a better look at her. Yeah, she's looking like she's going to be a solid pickup for all the waifu collectors out there. But on a more personal note, for those who do care about the analytical perspective, we are here today to discuss our thoughts, as we always do prior to a character's release, on their performance. What do I think about them? Where's my headspace at? Let's go ahead and get into it. I mean, if I'm being honest with you guys, she's looking like she's going to be just as expensive as I thought she would be. And it's a different kind of expensive, right? There's a nuanced description to expensive in gacha games. There's expensive such as, oh, people make the argument, you need their light cone, you need their eidolons. There's that kind of expensive. But then there's the kind of expensive where you have to fill up their entire trace tree. You have to build up them to level 80 because they are a break effect character who scales better with leveling. And that's the kind of expensive that Kafka is going to be. You have to take her all the way up to level 80 because break effect scaling with level is absolutely nuts. But it doesn't stop there. Her whole entire concept is predicated upon triggering, or re-triggering, should I say, dots already inflicted upon the enemy. And because of this, you not only have to build her up, you have to build up the dot characters as well, which is fine because this is a long-term game. You're going to eventually end up doing that anyways. But the problem here is that it doesn't end there as well. So you have to build up your Luca, you have to build up your Sampo, you have to build up your Serval, and then when a Pyro character comes out, or oh dear God, you did not hear that. If I had the Men in Black device, I would snap the camera to make you all forget it. You have to build up a fire character. Probably later on down the road. Fire is not an element that's as potent as a shock, wind, and bleed. Those are really the best ones to re-trigger, but there probably will be a fire character coming down the road. Anyways, if you're somebody who's thinking, nah, I don't have to build up all those people, yes the fuck you do, buddy. Okay, yes you do, because if you don't, it's wasted potential for Kafka. Allow me to explain why. So if Kafka can re-trigger dots, the multiplier, the damage formula for a dot is the attack percent of the character, the defense of the enemy, and the resistance to that element that the enemy has. So there's going to be scenarios where you go inside of the memory of chaos where the enemy isn't weak to a particular element, but they will be weak to another element. For instance, let's say they're not weak to wind, but they're weak to physical. Well, you can throw in Luca inside of that team composition, and Luca's going to be the one who's carrying the team because Kafka's going to be re-triggering the bleed dot on that enemy. And since bleed dot scales off of the HP of the enemy, that's going to be the biggest damage amplification for that team composition against that particular scenario. So there's going to be scenarios where you're going to have to swap out dot characters. Now, yes, you can make the argument that you can run 3 dot characters. Absolutely, you can. But my point is, some dot characters are going to perform much worse than other dot characters up against the elemental synergies you're facing. So because of this, you really need to have a dot character built for each corresponding element that matches the scenario you're going up against inside of the video game. And unfortunately, dot is one of those damage concepts inside of this game that needs a lot of investment in order to deal any kind of damage, even when re-triggered. So not only is it a heavy investment in terms of building up their relic sets and getting the right sub stats, it's also a heavy investment with resources for taking them to level 80, because once you have them built up, now you have to establish on the Kafka team compositions who's going to be the one in charge of breaking the shields. Because the unfortunate truth about break effect is, well, if you're not breaking shields, it's a completely useless stat. So you have to decide out of the team composition who is the one that's going to be breaking the shields, because that's the one you're going to be putting the break effect set on. So with that being said, there's 2 ways to build these dot characters. You build them with a break effect set, and then you build them with a regular set because they're not focusing on breaking enemy shields. This is now an even larger investment. because not only do you have to build up every character, you also have to have two different sets. Now, I already know what you're thinking. Oh, I'm just gonna put a set on them that has a little bit of break effect. You're gonna go hybrid, a little bit of break effect, a little bit of attack, a little bit of effect hit rate here and there. Sure, you can do that, absolutely. I have no problem with that. Just know that that break effect stat is absolutely useless. But if you want to play the brain dead way, which you shouldn't get offensive, because brain dead means you don't want to use your brain and you just want to enjoy the game without thinking too hard about combat. There's nothing wrong with this. This is not an insult. I'm just telling you the truth. You can do that as well. But if you're somebody who's really trying to max out that play style, you definitely want to have a set that's going to match the break effect play style, and then a set that's going to match their maximize their ability to deal dot damage with their regular triggered dot. Which, by the way, I would like to reiterate for the newbies, there are two entirely different dots. There's the regular dot and then there's the break effect dot. So somebody like Sampo is capable of applying a regular dot, but then when you break the enemy shield with his wind element, he applies the break effect wind dot, which is an entirely different multiplier and damage formula that is much higher than the regular dot. So because of this, it is important to establish who's breaking shields on the team. Now, with all of that being said, this is why I say Kafka is very expensive, and she is. Now that we got that out the way, she's also the most unique DPS in the game that I think is probably going to be the most enjoyable, because being able to make dot characters the main DPS without them actually being the main DPS is really cool. Just imagine your Luca against a scenario where everyone's weak to physical. He breaks the elite shield. Kafka pops her ult and her skill and turns his bleed dots into 100k damage. That is the coolest shit possible, and it sounds incredibly exciting to play, doesn't it? So she can do that with not only Luca, she can also do it with the Sampo, and then she can do it with the Serval. So it's one of those styles where it's like, yeah, it's a lot of investment, but over time, as more dot characters start to come into the game, you are essentially using a play style that is recycling its enjoyability, if that makes sense, because you're always going to make that new person the DPS because Kafka can re-amplify their dots. So it's a very enjoyable playstyle to utilize. She's actually the most fun DPS in that aspect, because she's not the only DPS. She's the DPS along with whomever you're using with her dot playstyle concept. Anyways, I would like to solidify my stance on how I'm going to be going about it with her. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to do the 3 dot characters on one team unless I'm doing simulated universe. Where I'm at is I'm going to do a Kafka and then look at the scenario that I'm going up against. If they're weak against wind, I'm going to throw Sampo in there, and it's just going to be Sampo and Kafka. And then that third character is going to be somebody like Pella or Silverwolf to amplify the damage of Sampo's dot and Kafka's dot. And then the final character, of course, is going to be a healer unit. She's going to have some skill point issues. So you're going to make sure you need to make sure you have a skill point, efficient team composition. You can't just have everybody on there that's using their skills up left and right. So I'm more of the, I'm more advocating 2 dot characters as opposed to 3. Now, I'm not saying you can't do 3. Do it. I'm sure it'll work just fine. For me personally, though, I'd rather amplify the damage of them by throwing somebody on the team like Silverwolf and Pella, who can bring the defense of the enemy so far down that Kafka and that associated dot character, who is her dance partner, can make up for that third character's dot damage. However, I do think 3 dot characters will have viability as well. I just think it's going to be better with that scenario I just pitched at you. I also think that Pella and Silverwolf aren't the only options. I think Asta will be a fantastic option in scenarios where everyone's weak against the fire element, because Asta amplifies everyone's attack percent, which increases their regular dot damage, which is an overall net positive for all dot characters, period. So she's another supportive option. I'm not a big fan of Yukong just because she's imaginary, but she can increase everyone's attack percent as well as their crit rate and crit damage. She might be an option, but for now she's in the back with Amber for me. But my biggest concern with Kafka is honestly just the fact that I gotta build up so many damn characters. I gotta build her up. I gotta build up Luca. I haven't touched my Serval. I gotta build her up. My Sampo's level 50. Like, god damn, there's so many freaking characters I gotta build up that it's just gonna be a hell of a grind fest when she releases. it's okay, because this is what I look forward to. This is part of the enjoyable experience for me. I do think it's worth mentioning that if you have your DPSs, she is not a must pull in any way, shape, or form. She's just one of those units that is going to be purely carried by the fandom. If you want her, you're going to grab her, and if you're looking for an interesting playstyle, I think those are definitely the selling points and incentivizing people to grab her. Other than that, she's an easy skip if you're not like raving about how bad she is, how fine she is as a character. If you're not caring about, like, you know, things like that, she's an easy skip for sure. Yeah. As of now, that is my summary of Kafka. Obviously, when she releases, we'll be doing the showcases, we'll make the guide, we'll do all the good stuff like that. But for now, that is going to be my thoughts on Kafka. As always, hopefully I brought you guys some value and some pretty useful insight that you can use to bang that shit out with Kafka. Yeah. Take care, and I'll catch you on the flip side.